Hey, true believers. Are you looking for a comic book that has some awesome human interest moments, some action, some very dramatic scenes? Then look no further than X Factor number 26. This was an absolutely awesome read. This was part of the Fall of the Mutants event that Chris Claremont spearheaded, and the outcome of the Fall of the Mutants was where the world thought that the X-Men at the time were Storm, Havoc, Wolverine, who else was it? Psylocke and Dazzler, I think, and Rogue and Colossus and Longshot. Yes, thought that they were dead, but it was that's what they wanted the world to think, so that the villains wouldn't hound their friends and loved ones. And that kind of where we get into the whole Siege Perilous thing, which is a whole nother thing. But what I liked about the Fall of the Mutants is each book that had the tie-in imprint here on the top, you didn't have to read it if you didn't want to, because it did not affect the main story going on in an Uncanny X-Men at the time. So I appreciate that, as we're nowadays, we're like Civil War II, where there's almost 70 plus books you have to read in order to understand the whole thing, because it won't happen in the main books, which, as I always say, if you're going to have an event, the main stuff needs to happen in the event book, not some spin-off. But that's just me. Anyway, the print date on this book was March 1988. And Stan Lee presents Casualties. So I haven't read the book before this, but from what I understand is the X-Men are able to take down Apocalypse's celestial ship, and it goes spinning out of control and crashes half of New York. And as you can see here, the police are saying, "Halt, X Factor. I arrest you for crimes against the city of New York. You have the right to remain silent." So it goes to do the Miranda rights. So right there, the stakes are happening, and aptly, casualties of war, the outcome of what happened in the last issue. So right there, you're just kind of like, oh boy. So it gives you enough information from, again, the last issue. So if you jump into this book, you can at least appreciate this one with kind of knowing what happened last issue, as it should be if you're a new reader, enough to draw you in and want to go get the back issues and move forward. Now the book here, masterfully crafted by Louise Simonson writing, Walter Simonson penciling, Bob Wiacek inker, Joe Rosen letterer, Petra Scotese, I'm assuming, colorist, Bob Harris editor, and Tom DeFalco editor-in-chief. So right there, all-star cast on this book. And the artwork shows, dialogue shows as well. And I like this splash page. Again, this was back before computer digital art was more of a thing. So it was handcrafted by the art team through traditional mediums. The celestial ship here, in our review of Amazing X-Men number 3, I didn't really go over it. But there's a moment where Apocalypse is beating the snot out of Magneto, and he's talking about how Magneto basically physically wore Magneto himself out, bringing down the celestial ship and almost killing both Apocalypse and himself. So at least I like how that is referenced in the Age of Apocalypse, how Ship is killed. This eventually becomes X Factor's base of operations, and spoiler alert, this is the issue where it happens, because Ship has been downed, Apocalypse has abandoned it. So, what I like about this book is how the tone changes. We start out with the police and citizens of New York and Manhattan hating these mutants and wants them dead. And with that happening, Beast is saying, "Why shouldn't I bash some sense in your stupid head?" And then Warren kind of even says, "You really believe that waving these pitiful toys in our faces will force us to come quietly? Our mutant powers place us beyond your reach." So at this point, Warren has been changed into Archangel, and he's having a hard time struggling with what he's become. And it's kind of creepy because Cyclops actually agrees with him. He says, "Angel's right, though, Jean, about us and our powers." And so, police are calling them arrogant. But before anything can happen with that, New York is in shambles because of what happened. And Beast is blaming himself because he was the one that took out the gyro, directional system for the ship. And at this point, if you notice Beast's dialogue getting a little, like for example, well here, I'll just read this. Beast says, what is it? He goes, Apocalypse fixed me good, didn't he? We were fighting. He lured you to the ship's gyroscope, tricked you into smashing it. How could you know what would have happened? So I don't know what issue it was, but apparently Apocalypse got a hold of Beast, was able to make him human again. But the flip side is the stronger McCoy becomes now, his intelligence dwindles. So kind of like Maul from Wildcats, like where Maul gets bigger, his brain shrinks. Same thing here. So it's kind of an interesting shakeup with how Beast is always kind of like the super genius of the group. So I like this dynamic of what are we going to do when the smartest man in the room is no longer the smartest man in the room. Now, the book kind of really focuses on X-Factor going through and just selflessly saving people, even through sheer exhaustion. And even though Beast doesn't have his intelligence, he's still doing his best to save people. Like he goes to save this man from under all this lumber, and Bobby has to chase him and he goes, Beast, wait, let me brace the ceiling before you shift that beam. And then, so you see Beast here struggling with what he's become. He goes, yeah, I hate being dumb. Darn, why can't I do anything right? And the elderly man he saves, he goes, what you're doing now is right with me, son. So, again, you just see that even though they're being hated, they're supposed to be arrested, they're still going to go out of their way to save people. That's what the X-Men are about. Not sequestering yourself on Krakoa and thinking you're the dominant species, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm referring to. And then during this time, too, Cyclops had left Madeline Pryor. Because, after Jean died, he met her. They got married, had a child named Nathan, who becomes Cable, which there is an awesome X-Factor series that we will be going over. It's called Endgame. Thing knocks me on my back every time I read it. And so you'd think that all this kind of reading, in sense, is boring, but again, it leads somewhere and it has impact. It's talking about how with Cyclops being torn apart from Jean's death, and he said he half wished that marrying Madeline, he thought that was Jean reincarnated. And he said, I couldn't live with this lie. It hindered my ability to lead the X-Men. So he says right here, so I quit the X-Men. We moved to Alaska. Maddie deserved whatever happiness I could give her. And I thought that when you died, I'd lost all chances of happiness. So what did it matter? See how that's impactful right there, saying that with you did what I had to live for. I met this woman. I half loved her. It gave me a chance towards happiness. I mean, it's sick, but he was a broken man after the events of the Dark Phoenix saga. Get past the ad. And so again, we see some more of the mutant prejudice. Again, here, this is what I mean by not so much subtext, but it's not so much in your face. So this guy here, he's saying, what is it with you? Can't you follow simple directions? First, the smile face mutants attack, and Roosevelt got most of those casualties. And you just see Beast looking at this doctor, and he goes, the smile faces, they weren't mutants. So the smile faces, they have like these huge like iron robot things with smiley faces. I don't remember what issue it is, but yeah, they were being secretly funded through machinations within the X-Factor company that the team didn't know about, I believe. And so people are blaming them, and that was kind of their point, was to make X-Factor look bad. Trish Tilby, who was kind of a victim of that, the X-Men, or should I say X-Factor, don't really want anything to do with her because she ousted X-Factor as mutants, as were when X-Factor was originally created by the 5 original X-Men. Their plan was to go under the auspice of saying that they were mutant exterminators, but they would save mutants and either let them go or try to train them, under wraps to go out and live normal lives, etc., so forth. Well, Trish kind of, inadvertently finds a connection with Worthington Industries, and she starts to investigate and find out that they're mutants, so they got ousted, so the world hates them because they're mutants. But, again, remember when I was talking about tone? So, the first half, everyone hates the mutants. They're like, oh, I wish you'd all die, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But everyone's seeing how these X-Men, or X-Factor, should I say, is pushing themselves to their absolute limits of exhaustion. It's like the cops run in and they go, hey, you, goggles. I love that. Cyclops says, looks like we've got the time now. Do you still want to arrest us, Lieutenant? And right here, look at this. No, thank heaven. New orders. Those reporters who dogged your heels have pasted your faces all over radio and TV. Orders are you're heroes, and we're supposed to treat you like heroes. And as far as I personally am, I'm concerned that you're heroes too. So because the X-Men, without having to say anything, just through their actions, proved what they really are. So it kind of starts to go back on Xavier's dream of humans and mutants coexisting peacefully. Now, in the midst of all this, the one tie-in to the main fall of the mutants is Madeline Pryor. Where is it? No, this isn't it. It's over here. Sorry. It talks about Madeline saying that she's going to miss Scott, saying goodbye. And she goes, please find our son and keep him safe. I love you. Goodbye. And that's because at the end of the Fall of Mutants and Uncanny X-Men, she follows the X-Men to the Australian outback and is presumed dead. Now, as I said at the beginning of this issue, this is the issue. I said it twice. This is the issue where X-Factor claim Apocalypse's celestial ship as their base of operations. And the police, they're the ones that kind of offer, because they said, the reporters are going to be all over your butt. Your base was destroyed. Why don't you go to that Apocalypse ship? Which is kind of random, but you kind of see how they had to push the dialogue for the narrative forward, because Apocalypse's ship has like a mutant beam like shield on it so that mutants can enter, but humans cannot. And they said, you should be safe there. So the police actually give them a safe ride there. And a little girl comes up and she goes, you saved my grandma from a fire. And she says, thank you. And my grandma said, if it's okay if I grow up to be a mutant just like you. And so you can see the look on Jean's face, saying that we finally reached Xavier's dream, or so they think. Now, I don't want to give away any more of the plot, because there's a lot that happens between Jean and Cyclops in terms of Madeline Pryor, and it's really good reading. Like, I know I say that less dialogue, it's not a lot, and again, it means something. Just like Claremont, Louise Simonson knew how to do that as well. I wanted to show this panel because they actually get a ticker tape parade for helping to repair the damage from the battle with Apocalypse. And the policeman that they met at the beginning says, "Deja vu, huh, Cyclops? We got to stop meeting like this." And he says, "If humans and mutants can continue to meet like this, Sergeant, in trust, in friendship, in cooperation, and peace, then the world can become a better place for us all." These are the X-Men I remember. And I just said, not living on Krakoa, thinking you're the dominant species, living like you're some sort of dictatorship. You know what I mean? That's what the new Dawn of X books feel like to me. Look at how here, not going out of their way to show off their powers. I mean, Scott has that moment where he's saying, talking to Jean about war, and he goes, he is right about our powers, but he doesn't take it any further. As we're in these newer books, I don't like the separatist mentality that the X-Men have. These are the X-Men I grew up with. This is the type of morals that I read through comics growing up, talking about how people can live peacefully no matter what you are. Boom. So, again, an absolutely amazing issue. And to kind of tie back to the beginning, I'm glad that all the Fall of the Mutant books You could read them independently without feeling like you're going to miss something like Ellsworth Modern Events, where if you don't read every crossover, you're going to miss this big headache. So anyway, if you guys have enjoyed this comic book, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and see if you can pick up a copy of it. And if you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that little X bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love to hear your feedback and just talk with y'all down in the comments below or on our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description below. So with all that said, thank you all so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.